Welcome back to Bitcoin Season 2. I'm Charlie Spears. I have two great guys from MagicEden, Make Tokens Fun, and Summer Asian Boy on the pod today. MagicEden, if you don't already know, does like the lion's share of volume in the Ordinals and I would say greater Bitcoin ecosystem and kind of drives the runes trading as well. We're going to talk about MagicEden's focus on Bitcoin this week, BTC week, they call it, their Mempool counter sniping mitigation, and the Ordinals/runes ecosystem overall. I think there's something in this for everyone, whether you're a degen to someone who wants to talk about the technical implementation of their RBF mitigation. But we're going to talk about how MagicEden works over the hood and under the hood. But first, a word from our sponsor. Bitcoin Season 2 is brought to you by Botanix. Botanix Labs is pioneering a new direction for DeFi with the first EVM L2 running on Bitcoin that's built to be forward secure, decentralized, and share gas fees generated by the network with users. See the future of DeFi at Botanix, botanixlabs.xyz. Okay, welcome to the podcast, Summer Asian Boy and Make Tokens Fun. Glad to have you guys here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to call Make Tokens Fun Matthew, and I'm going to call Summer Asian Boy because I like those names. I think it makes the most sense in my head. But can you give me, each of you give me a little intro, like who are you guys? How long have you been at MagicEden? What do you do? And why did you choose your particular profile picture? I'll toss it to you, Matthew, first.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us. So I've been in MagicEden since I want to say April. So not terribly long. And since I joined, I've been the product manager on the Ordinals and Runes ecosystems and marketplaces. And prior to joining MagicEden, I worked in crypto at an exchange, managing funding and also an NFT marketplace. And I picked my puppet.
Yeah, you got a puppet too.
Yeah. So I picked the puppet just because around the time I got into Ordinals was pretty close to the puppet mint date, or actually, I was active like a few months before that. And when I saw it coming around, I was just like, this is the funniest thing. And so I got one early on and then kind of just blew up a little bit. So
Yeah, you picked a good horse to ride on, and it's been a fun. I love me some puppets. I have a few myself. Summer Asian Boy, how long you been with MagicEden? What do? You seem like one of the main guys behind the new tech coming out here.
Yeah, for sure. I actually joined MagicEden probably like about last June. But yeah, it was definitely like a very fortuitous time for me to join. I think like as I was interviewing, like I saw all the articles that MagicEden put out as they like did their hackathon to build up this like Ordinals marketplace. I was like, well, that'll be interesting to work on that. And history shows itself, and now I'm like, really working on it for sure. Yeah, and then before that, I did get my feet wet into crypto. I joined a startup with a friend of mine, working on like actually decentralized social media. Actually, we built like a some kind of Instagram like app on top of a layer one blockchain. Not as big as Farcaster, but somewhere within that realm. Yeah, and I definitely got into that during that like 2021 bull market. Even though it dropped down and then the company went under, I still stuck with crypto. So
You stuck with it, and now you've got I believe it's a commoners as your profile picture. That's
that's
kind of that's a niche one. That's the uncommons collection, right?
this is the commoners collections. Yeah, the uncommon, the first 10K uncommon. Honestly, I really I don't know if it's like just being very like self involved or whatever, but I really enjoy like PFPs that actually like just look like me. So that's basically.
Yeah, well, I'm in a way I'm like both happy and sad that I don't look like a puppet. So I just kept my like boomer LinkedIn profile picture. So still sitting on my hands there. Okay, so MagicEden originally started in Solana, went cross chain, been pretty active in the Bitcoin space. Sounds like they've been hiring towards this kind of focus on Bitcoin. And Matthew, you and MagicEden put out a video this past week talking about, quote, the rich Bitcoin ecosystem. This seems to indicate like a pretty major focus in this direction on Bitcoin for MagicEden. If I'm intuiting this correctly, like this is a pretty big move and like pretty intentioned focus for MagicEden to lean into Bitcoin right now.
Oh, definitely. I mean, ever since we got into Bitcoin before I even got here, about a year before when the Ordinals marketplace launched, and I think what we've seen, like at least from myself being a user in the ecosystem prior to joining, and then since I've joined, we've just seen like incredible growth and like really exciting stuff going on. And I think the feel I get from it is like this is the most popular it's ever been to build on Bitcoin. It's only getting more popular, and like on-chain assets are really becoming a reality. So, I mean, I think the opportunity is just incredible, and so we're really excited to invest in this ecosystem and to like move further into it. But yeah, it's a big bet for the company.
Yeah, and I remember like I watched the video and it's both succinct but also like very broad because like using terms such as like MagicEden biggest DApp, like AMMs, even mentioning lending. This like is a very broad scope. I don't know if these are things you're actively moving into, but you're at least like throwing it out there that this is not maybe just about NFT trading anymore.
Yeah, I think so here's the thing, like we started in ordinals and then obviously went over to runes when runes released, but I think there's like so much more to be built on Bitcoin, and as we know there's only been like people actually like there's been an explosion recently of people finally being interested in building on the chain, and I think we're honestly really looking forward to in the future potential upgrades to the chain or other things. It's been interesting to see some of the L2s come out and like how they're working. So I think it's all just like really exciting what's going on in the space, and obviously we don't want to like close any doors off for things that are cool or things that are exciting or what our users want to do.
So I'll throw a question to Summer Asian Boy in that I talked to like other teams building in Bitcoin, um, and there's a common story that not a lot of people, in fact, hardly anyone, had any kind of like entrenched Bitcoin engineering experience, and I think this probably applies for most of the ecosystem. Even though you're fairly new, it seems to me like MagicEden has kind of like had to eat your own dog food. In fact, kind of like had to train and discover how to build Bitcoin tooling and engineering tools. You kind of had to like figure this out for yourself. Can you kind of paint the picture for me what it looks like building the MagicEden backend and engineering suite from a technical perspective? Like, is it different than other ecosystems, or are there similar, or are there some analogies to be made?
Yeah. I mean, I think there are like both. I think they're both true. I definitely. I mean, there's still definitely aspects of like regular engineering that applies to it, but there's also definitely very unique Web3 stuff that does happen. Like we can take for example, like when we first start off with Ornos, right? That was just a 2 week project, right? Like hackathon project that got thrown together, and it's just the ball's just been rolling ever since. So some old school news related to that, like technical debt, like that is something that like we're always, especially with like our main Ornos, like we've definitely done a lot of hacky things in the beginning that we're just still like working towards like cleaning that up. But there's some other things too that are like really like only you would encounter Web3, right? Like the whole runes launch. Like who launches a whole product before actually being able to test it? Like this, it's just such
Yeah.
a like, cart before the wheel kind of thing. So
Yeah, like that's I mean, yeah, you mentioned tech debt. I think that's where every single team is right now. Is like everybody's got mountains of tech debt and like an infinite roadmap of 100 things to build, and the plane's already flying, and you can't stop building it. That's what I feel like. Um, a lot of people. I'll throw a question to Matthew. Like, So what does this look on the product side? Like, this is probably one of the weirdest product manager, product focused businesses to build in right now. Like, we know kind of what your audience might want some things to look like, but you have to reconcile that with what Bitcoin can do. Can you just talk me through how you do this on the product side?
Oh my gosh, that is. I'd say that's definitely one of the biggest challenges in this role. Just because like there's so many marketplaces out there, whether it's like a crypto marketplace or like Facebook marketplace or like the stock market. You know how you want an efficient marketplace to operate. You want it to be quick. You want buyers and sellers to be able to transact. You want things to be efficient. And ultimately, it's a weird product position to be in, just because so much is possible right now on chain on Bitcoin. And then ultimately, like, there's a lot more to be discovered. Um, Eventually, there are some technical limitations at the moment they seem really hard to get across. I think eventually people are just going to get across them. So ultimately, the difficulty is like, I know what the users want. I know like what an efficient marketplace looks like. But then ultimately, I have to kind of work with Steven and the rest of our engineering team, just because it's like, it's very engineering driven. But yeah, it's a weird spot to be in. And ultimately, I think our design team also plays a huge role in that, because we just got to simplify everything that's going on in the back end to like an extreme amount, to the point where it's not confusing to users. Because, and to go on for that for a second, like every new user that comes from another chain, or like any new user in general, we'd like to make it like easier for them to understand too. So yeah, it's a difficult spot, but that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, I almost find that um, it's like it's already such a lift to explain it to the design team that you're like, how in the world are we ever going to explain this to the end user? Uh,
Luckily
and
for us,
I could
luckily for us, our designer actually is like very, very in the weeds as well as a lot of the rest of our team. So that definitely makes things a lot easier.
I mean, I feel like it extends to you because I saw your tweet and I don't know like what your background in Bitcoin is, but like you had a very good succinct summary over like the particular RBF sniping mitigation. And I thought that was like, wow, like I don't know a lot of product managers who can like actually explain what's going on in a pretty effective way. So I thought that was pretty indicative of like you kind of got to train the entire team what's going on, and that gets us
It's so
to
tricky. It's like, and it extends to everyone, because um like marketing ops, like everyone needs to know like all the intricacies of Bitcoin a little bit to be able to understand and build in the market and communicate it as well.
Yeah, it's like the old dodge where you like those who can. It takes like deep knowledge to explain things clearly and simply.
and this is why I like Casey so much because he's able to take these very abstract concepts and very technical concepts and distill them into communicable ideas. So let's just get to I think the most interesting thing this week is where you guys rolled out an innovative counter sniping mitigation. And am I correct, Summer Asian Boy, that you were pretty involved in designing this at a technical level?
In terms of, it's especially in the like protocol level for sure. Like it was basically something that's been brewing in the back of my mind, and like a lot of it is, I mean, to be fair, like it's only difficult or it's only like innovative insofar it is structured in such a way that basically Magic Eden is comfortable using, right? Like there's a lot of custodial type of structure in which we obviously don't want to do, but in our current setup, we are comfortable with moving forward with it.
Yeah. So for anyone who got this far in the episode and hasn't read like your explainer threads, I'll invite you to give I would say a moderately technical explanation of it. Because I try to invite both the Degen and like the kind of Bitcoin developer to listen to this. Explain to me, Stephen, how this series of transactions works to prevent RBF sniping?
Yeah, for sure. So you basically have a layer of 3 transactions. The first, but before I talk about those 3, it actually might be easier first to talk from the seller's point of view because that's where it all starts. So you basically, so to talk about that, we're going to just do a quick refresher on like what the current state of the world is and how we improve on that. All right, bear with me. So the first,
Go for
right
it.
now, right, the whole reason Mempool sniping exists is because we have sellers sign a particular signature scheme, which is really useful for the seller to sign and forget in a basically non-interactive way, which is just a fancy term of saying like sign and forget, and then people can fulfill without them having to come back. Uh, but in order to do that right now, we have to use a particular sig hash or signature scheme, which allows anyone can pay, quite literally, right? So the only thing that the seller commits to is here's the ordinal, or here's the asset, and then give me my payment. Whatever else happens in the transaction, I don't care. And so unfortunately, that does mean that like once that like we can, MagicEden as a marketplace can only do so much control before it gets broadcasted in Mempool. But by definition, once it gets to the Mempool, it's public, it's free. Anyone can actually, take it for themselves as long as you can, pay for the replacement, pay higher gas, right? Which is itself like a quite an interesting market innovation or market change that came, right? Like we started off. That was a learning lesson for MagicEden as well. Like it started off like being like 30% hash rate, so it was possible to do back then, but it was definitely there's something more like gambling evolved back then. Like you didn't even know like you'll succeed. You'll like more likely fail still. But now, but as the cabal has increased it up to basically like 90%, like it has now become like an actual problem, right? People are just sniping. Honestly, you see snipes that happen that like have like no. You're like, what value are you even getting from this?
They're sniping just because they have too much money in their wallet. They don't know what else to do.
They lost the thrill of winning on a lottery, so they have to. The only thing they have to throw of is just winning. Period. You know.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I make this joke all the time. I don't know if the market's rational, but it sure is fun to watch.
Exactly. But yeah, but it is frustrating. There is a lot of actual negative issues that has happened with it, right? Like part of our efficiency of sweeps is be able to do all of it in one, but it's way too easy for like a single sniper to bust that whole sweep apart, and like neither the sellers nor the buyers succeed win with that. They all lose. So when we bring this in, we are trying to then replicate that same level of non-interactiveness from the seller. We still want the seller to be able to sign and then forget, which is tricky because we know that sniping is caused due to the use of the anyone can pay signature type. So we know it has to be it has to be a sign that commits stronger to that, but to still make it like still kind of work like anyone can pay or virtually anyone can pay. That's where the gist comes from. So the listing that we do put out, I do want to give out credit where it's due. Like the original design was basically put out by Lifo FIFO, where you basically have an offer like style, um, where the seller does sign it to get their payment, and then send it to this holding address. In his design, they had it. He had it as uh, like Magic Eden address, which is something that Magic Eden would directly control. But we've modified that to be something a little bit more trustless, so that the user can still be able to let Magic Eden kind of like sign on their behalf and have that programmability, but still like not have to fully trust Magic Eden in that. In case of any bad actors or loss of Magic Eden's ability to sign for those transactions, is completely recoverable or compatible from the buyer side.
And we'll come back to this, but I kind of want to get you to talk a little bit about the tap script scheme and even like Merkle trees or tap trees. But I want to throw a question back to Matthew, which is, okay, so I'm a user and I don't understand anything that Stephen just said. And what's different? Like, do I see anything different? I don't know. Like, how reduced do you
Yeah.
try to make this to the end user?
No, so that's the first challenge is the tech, and the second challenge is like making it understandable. Um,
Yeah.
so what we've done, at least on the front end of the marketplace, when this rolls out, you really won't notice a huge difference. All you're going to notice is when you look at different assets for sale, whether it's ordinals or runes, you're going to see a little shield next to some of those assets. Now, every new listing that flows into Magic Eden will sign both the old signature scheme and the new signature scheme for listings. So hopefully, the idea is when this launches, pretty much all the liquidity should be there for you to purchase through this shield method. Um, all you got to do is add the items to your cart. We will optimize the cart for you if you want to buy like some shields and non-shields. If you want to go all shields, if you want to go stuff, you can even in the global settings, we're putting a place for you to, just in case you don't want to use it, you'll be able to like turn it off in there. But we really think this is going to be like great for users because they're gonna not get sniped in the mempool, which is I think the biggest problem we've been hearing and the biggest like market wide kind of like issue for the past like 3 to 4 months, or I guess longer.
Yeah, and what I hear is like I think this wasn't as well understood because you're trying to communicate like a bunch of different things at the same time. Like in order for this to roll out, you can't just flip a switch and everything turn on. You need the sellers to sign into the
Yeah.
new signature scheme. And
Yep.
this is why you got to do this kind of like Indiana Jones like hot swap,
Yeah. I
you have
like
to like roll it out. Yeah.
I made a joke the other day to someone. They were like, "Can you flip the switch already?" I was like, "We've already started flipping them." It's a series of things we need to do to for this rollout. But ultimately, again, for users, the value is like sweeps are going to be so much better. Buying grails, those were susceptible to sniping as well in the mempool. So like, hopefully that goes a lot smoother. After a new mint, the market's like crazy hot. So I think it'll be useful then. And then finally, like any period where the floor is moving quickly or there's a lot of market action, shout out like runes right now, it's going to be hopefully a lot easier to purchase this way and actually get the transaction through. Um, so yeah,
So let's
Let's
go
go.
back to this obscurity of tap script and vertical trees and tap leaf or tap. I don't even know what the term is. Tap leaves. Um, this is really interesting because uh, I would say not many Bitcoin companies are even using this, and this is a particular. This has been in since the Taproot soft fork in 22, and here we are. I would say the legacy of Bitcoiners will often criticize new Ordinals people for being degenerate, but I'm looking here and I'm like, this is like some of the more sophisticated tech across the entire Bitcoin landscape. So, Stephen, walk me through this particular twist. You said shout out Lifo FIFO, and therefore I guess shout out Greg. But like you guys added this interesting tap script or tap tree into this signature scheme. Explain this to me.
Yeah, for sure. Basically, so when I remember seeing like this whole tap script and like finding like learning about Merkle tree. Just for reference, by the way, this whole like knowledge of Bitcoin, like I picked it up completely on Magic Eden Steins. I had zero knowledge of Bitcoin before joining them, so I literally was like a sponge like the first 2 months trying to learn everything. And I really found like the whole Merkle tree kind of like really fascinating, just like how efficiently you can like encode information. And so I actually started thinking about like tap trees. Yeah, actually back when like if you guys remember when Magic Eden tried to do BRC20, like that was something that I was also considering as well in terms of like, can we like improve fungibility there somehow by like some crazy scheme where you encode like all because like inscriptions itself actually is a tap script too, right? Like it doesn't really there's no need to have like multiple potential reveals of an inscription, but you could imagine that you did like some kind of like scheme where you like committed to a tree that actually had like one of many potential reveals that you wanted to into a specific inscription at the time, right? Like it didn't really make sense at the end because of the gas but it was
But
kind of
you
an
could
interesting.
do that. Yeah. If anyone wants to do a crazy, obscure, technical approach to an inscription, you could do it.
You could do it. I don't think it would just be even more gas inefficient. So it didn't really make
Yeah.
sense from that point of view. That's also kind of part of the fun too, like building out in like specifically in Magic Eden land, right? Because you're kind of like trying to push the boundary of like the tech, but also like in the constraints of like what actually people will use, right? Like, and that's where the fun innovation comes. So for point, but anyway, circling back to when we got to here, I was also like brainstorming, like, well, if I didn't worry about practicality, I was like, well, why not just do like, a two of two multi sig with every single user you could ever possibly want against Magic Eden. And so in that case, Magic Eden can just unlock that particular script, uh, and then provide both the path to the script in the Merkle tree or the tap tree, and as well as also the signature from Magic Eden. And so it kind of was actually a play of like what was originally developed for auctions as well, where we had like the two of two multi sig, and we used the Magic Eden signature more of a cosigner to basically approve what the user did, right? And so it kind of had like the same echoes. Where Magic Eden is really just a cosigner to like unlock this particular script. In this case, though, this is less about authorizing. Well, in a sense, it is authorizing, right? Like many people, just like anyone can like spend for this, but with the caveat of like whoever Magic Eden decides to authorize, in a sense. Uh, and then so you use that detail, and then you like give that upfront to the buyer before they even like broadcast anything. Then you kind of like fulfill the like necessary requirements of like the user be able to have like a trustless way of retrieving that funds if like that broadcast gets sent to Mempool and then Magic Eden just shuts down and disappears.
One way I try to explain Merkle trees, or even just these trees in general, is like you can encode vast amounts of information into small little packets that you put into a transaction, the root, if you will, which is kind of crazy because I was hearing Rindell from the Tapper Wizards talking about how like everything's just Merkle trees, and the more I understand about Bitcoin, the more I'm like, that is actually true. It's just Merkle trees all the way down. Um, what kind of I don't this might be a kind of a specific question, but like how many signatures might we be encoding into the root hash here? Because like,
Mm.
are we talking about like tens of thousands of wallets and signatures? What are we talking about here?
Well, okay. So I'll first. So the number of the number of wallets we're supporting is actually any Taproot address that ever interacted with Ordinals or runes. Period. So right now it's like
Like
taking
it's
just
over 500,000 now, right?
it's like 3 million right now and growing.
3 million.
Yeah,
Okay.
3 million. Oh, it's only Taproot address. So there is one limitation. We are only limiting this to Taproot address, uh, mostly for ease because it's like ironic because Taproot addresses themselves are still privacy enhanced because your like actual public private key pair is tweaked, so it's not exposed, but it's still useful because the address itself is still a public key even if it's tweaked. So like encoding that public key into a script means that even though your key isn't exposed, you can still, I know that you're able to sign for it because of how Taproot works. Yeah.
So going back to Matthew here, so like this is a gradual rollout process, and this podcast I think I'll drop it Saturday morning. Um, the you guys have been rolling out, I think starting today. You said the Mempool sniping protection. Where do we think we are like next week? Where's like the average user? Are they going to see a lot of shields on their UI, or what is that? I don't know. What are your thoughts on what this looks like?
Yeah. So I think I don't want to commit to any like specific date on the show just in
Yeah, yeah.
case. Uh,
You can caveat it. This is you just
but I think in the next like few weeks, we'll start to see stuff roll out on the front end, and like and I'm talking about unlocking the buying path, because the listing path is already fully out. But once that goes up, I'm really hopeful, especially for like the new mints, for the sweeps, for the Grail purchases, for all those use cases. Um, our hope is just that this path makes trading a lot easier and a lot better. And maybe it can bring old people back to Ordinals who have turned away, and runes, or new users in.
Yeah, I guess I got a question back to you then. Like you've mentioned that maybe a couple people were discouraged from the whole trading experience because of sniping. Certainly shit going down didn't help. Like when prices go down, people lose interest. Like do you think that that is actually a significant driver of just like the trading experience, the sniping experience? I'm not as like dialed into like user behavior. I'm famously kind of
Yeah.
a little bit like dumb about it. But yeah, what's your thoughts here?
You're probably being a little modest there, but no, of course it was. I think it was the number one driver over the past like 5 6 months of um, people turning away from the market. To be honest with you, because I think the experience was just. I remember the first time it happened to me, like long before I worked at Magic Eden, and I was like, okay, I wasn't sure of like the exact amount of Bitcoin in my wallet before this happened. Tried to sweep like I tried to make like a bunch of purchases, and then I noticed one wasn't in there. Where's the Bitcoin? Like, what's going on in this solution? And so, for someone new to the ecosystem or new to trading these things, it's just like a big turner for people. And then ultimately, I think like speaking on the broader market structure, um, when the seller is not actually able to accrue all the value of an asset, uh, and there starts to be a third party that sneaks in there, that being the miner, and then a lot of the value of the asset starts to flow to like let's say, 95% to the seller, 5% to the miner. When the incentive structure isn't correct there, I don't think it was like an optimal market for assets to be traded. So I'm really hopeful that by just having buyer and seller like a lot less friction, no random third people coming in the middle at the last minute, I think it should like hopefully help the trading experience a lot.
I mean, I'm a Bitcoin miner myself, and this summer was incredibly painful. But I think, but I agree with you. Like, as much as I want my rigs to survive and to stay online, that's a bad market structure. It's a bad experience, and overall, like, it discourages long term healthy activity growth. So, like, I do like to see solutions like this emerge.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not hard to like infer why markets in general are usually a buyer and a seller interacting without like a random auction system going on as well. So yeah, I'm really hopeful that at least like for ordinals and runes, it should really help out the on-chain activity.
So let's chat about rune swaps. Now, I haven't actually looked into very much about how you guys have talked about it, but I'll throw it to either one of you. Which of you wants to try to explain, like, maybe just the high points of the rune swaps mechanic to me?
Steven,
I'll
I'm happy
toss
to do it
back
if
to
you
you,
want.
Matt. Oh, you want me to? Okay, I'll talk
Go
first,
go for it, Steven.
and then Matt can dumb it down. To the lay people. No, actually, it's quite. I think we're pretty much on the same page. It's actually quite straightforward. So you know what we have right now with runes, we have ability to buy lots, list lots. We also have bidding now, with market sell that sells into it. So we basically have all the components ready for our rune swap, which is basically being able to effectively use the same systems that we had before, but provide like a much better user experience, to be able to just specify a number and like just to get a quote back and just to sell into it, whether buying or selling. Right. It still uses all the same tech underneath, but like just from, uh, I think part of it will be some improved logic in terms of lot selection. So rather than just like right now you just sweep, right, which is not necessarily the best experience, or like even if you mentally like I want to buy like 10,000 of this rune, like I have to like try to sweep it correctly or choose it. And then you have information overload when you don't really care. You're like, should I care about these lot sizes? No, all of this is just abstracted away into an interface which then tells you on a much higher level and on a more user level of like what you really care about, anyways. And so we know that like this is going to be so much more useful for the user just to be able to make more informed decisions to buy and also to sell as well. Yeah. Anything else that Matt wants to add?
Yeah, no, I think Steven nailed it. Like, it's end of the day, like people are used to and like swap interfaces. Um, in general, I think they're like probably one of the more common things you interact. Definitely the most common thing you interact with in Web3 in general. Um, so building that on top of the existing liquidity that we have, and honestly, like making runes feel a lot more fungible than the UTXO structure like allows it to be right now.
There is one
I
thing,
yeah.
there's one thing I wanted to call out, which is actually related to what we were talking before. So, in part of releasing our room swap, we do like it was also very imperative of like purchases like generally succeeding, right? So
Yeah,
we
there
have
you go.
our protections for buying will be in place when we release room swap, so that like you won't have this weird issue where you like swap into a room, but then oops, nothing's there.
Yeah.
Does that mean you guys are like handling the like some of the splits whenever like are you if you've got like the giant lot size which like bricks floors or whatever, does that mean like you guys are also kind of splitting automatically under the hood maybe?
I
So,
don't
go
say
ahead,
Matt.
Steven.
I would say as of right now, we're just using the current technology that we have underneath. But there are things that which we can do, which is like normally if you have like I think the market generally has been doing this as well, right? If you have a brick and you have like more real lots behind that brick, that wall, right, will more likely be optimizing towards like trying to fill, the amount that you have. Obviously, if you're trying to buy in large enough that can fit that huge wall, then definitely we'll fill with that wall in mind. But we'll definitely optimize for like being able to fit the amount that you really want with some I forget if it's like configurable tolerance, but at least some display tolerance of from the floor in which like it'll work. Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's funny, yeah. Go for it, Matt.
I was just gonna say to add on that, like it's to add on that, I think talking about like building markets again. So when the floor is bricked, obviously it sucks for everyone because the like for all the buyers, it's a problem because the floor price is stuck. But I think what swap's gonna really help with too is like again, like Steven said, there's like we'll have like price tolerance settings. So I think for users coming into this market that are unfamiliar with the lot selector or like scrolling down the lots to like pick out the size of lots and everything like that, it's going to help them purchase or find and purchase liquidity that is a healthy distance for them from the floor. So like, I mean, you do this on every other chain. Like, what's your swap tolerance on Solana? It's like not a terribly different like idea. And then when that happens, when the brick maybe becomes isolated from the rest of the floor, then there's maybe an opportunity for someone to come in and like use the market in that way in terms of like purchasing that lot and finding value because now it's a higher price. So I think like people being able to access the liquidity more frequently and like through this new interface, I hope will help with that too. So kind of like a natural like natural way for it to get worked out.
Yeah, it's funny to think about. I'm not a UI designer, but I'm familiar with the idea of like intent driven design or whatever. It's like the user intends to do something and they get to do that thing. And it's funny because Bitcoin has created like whatever the opposite of that is. It's like it is whatever we've had to solve for right now. Um, so I guess so let's pull back and let's talk about like Magic Eden as a whole. Like you guys got this wallet that you've launched. If I'm reading this right, this seems to be kind of like one of the pillars on which you guys are building this new like the next phase of Magic Eden. Am I reading this right? Like this seems to be like a pretty core building block of what the next few years looks like.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think now that we have like a mobile surface, a lot of this like really cool, exciting stuff we're doing on the back end and in the marketplace can have a home that's native on mobile, which is like really fantastic. I think people are used to using the apps and like used to the desktop experience and even using a dApp within like the browser of their wallet. Um, but I think there's a lot of value in like throwing that up to mobile and having it be native. Um, Steven, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, give me. I mean, I'm a parent of two children, so like being able to trade on phone is essential. Like I can't
It's pretty sweet. Yeah.
can't just always try to find the laptop, right? Like if I'm like trying to like, you know, uh, read a kid a story at home, I can like use the phone on the side. No, just kidding.
Yeah, like if I'm on, I go on long runs, and for some reason stuff likes to go up and down whenever I'm like 3 miles out from my computer. But I have my phone, so I need to either offload or take a position on something, uh, you know, when I'm far away from home. So looking forward to more options to do that.
You
Um,
gotta stop putting
so,
yourself in
so
risky positions before you
exactly,
exercise.
yeah. Otherwise, I gotta get home really, really fast so my pace gets faster. Okay, so let's talk about Matthew. You were pretty clear in again this video which you guys put out at the beginning of the week. Like there may be soft forks on the horizon for Bitcoin. You guys are clearly looking at this. If I can intuit, you guys are generally probably pro most soft forks. Where do you guys stand here? What is your thought? I'm going to ask you first, Matthew, and then I'll rotate to Steven. But like, where's your head on the topic of soft forks? Magic Eden now probably one of the largest represents one of the largest stakeholders in the on-chain economy. So like, this is like, you guys are pretty like if there's a soft fork, I would expect you guys to be one of the first people to build stuff utilizing that soft fork.
Yeah. No, fantastic question. I think my perspective on this is ultimately we serve the collectors and the traders on our platform, and we serve like the Bitcoin community as a whole. So like in terms of like what like I think the users and the collectors and the traders and the community that we interact with every day, like wherever they are, is obviously where we want to serve them. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like I know that's kind of like a non-answer, but
I know it was a very diplomatic answer. I
Don't
know
worry,
I'm kind
don't
of
worry.
pressing you here.
You have me here to give the.
Welcome. Yeah, Steven, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we're talking about soft fork, right? Like, it's no beating
Yeah.
around the bush which soft fork we're referring to, which is Upcat, right?
Yeah.
And when I think about Upcat, yes, I mean, I think many companies, including us, would be very excited to work towards building with that technology, right? I think that yet to like fully figure out exactly how Magic Eden wants to use it, but there's definitely ideas of like improving um like potentially improving our liquidity with like bids, for example. Like if we can make the bidding wallet, for example, fully trustless with a covenant, for example, like we can expand the amount of like features that we build into it quite drastically, right? For example, I don't know if we'll be quite there with like AMMs and so forth with it, but we can definitely improve a lot of things that we have, and even potentially open up new innovation depending on how the market goes. But yeah, more program. I'm all down for more programmability uh, to whoever the market tolerates for Bitcoin.
the stuff we could do would
Those
be.
are good.
I was gonna say the stuff we could do would be. Yeah, it would expand our horizons a lot.
I that's kind of that's my takeaway is like, okay, uh it's I would love to see more than like the same like three or four like ideas with if we were to have cats or covenants. Like there's a lot of things you could do. And just looking at the tap script tap tree implementation you guys did, like this is 2 years after
Mm.
Taproot, and nobody, as far as I'm aware, had really done anything product focused or even really used it at scale. So like the more my view is like the more tools we have, the more people who are like you guys out there with a with users and products trying to build cool stuff, the better. So I think Cat gives you a very, very big tool in your tool chest. I would like to. I don't know, like if I would love to see if there's any MagicEden people, either you guys, to come out to our conference in Boston, November 9th, where we got a lot of the Bitcoin developers, and we're going to be talking about soft forks. But enough about that. Let's wrap this conversation up. I mean, where do you guys think Bitcoin goes? Not the price, but just where do you think the Bitcoin what do you think the Bitcoin economy looks like as we close out the year?
I can start. I think honestly, like the Bitcoin economy in my mind is it's been like an interesting journey throughout the whole thing, but I feel like really strong about the direction we're headed in and where we are now. I don't think there's ever been as many teams building on Bitcoin. For like, if you look around right now, like what's the most exciting opportunity in crypto? In my mind, it's Bitcoin, and I think for a lot of people, it is Bitcoin because a lot of the cool innovation that's going on chain. So I think that's like a really like interesting and exciting point in time. And yeah, I think with like ordinals and runes being as have they've gotten like as popular as they have, it'll be just exciting to see what comes next. So
Yeah. How about you, Stephen? Where's your headed as we close out 2024?
Yeah, I mean, like, just keep on. I really enjoy Bitcoin a lot, just because I, I think it's like uh, anything worth building is going to be hard, and building on Bitcoin is definitely hard, but it definitely is worth building. So I like the challenge. I find it fun to try to, like, I think like the like creativity is born through like restrictions, and Bitcoin definitely gives you a lot of restrictions.
a lot of the restrictions too. I will say a lot of the restrictions. Sometimes I start thinking they're a bug, but they're actually a feature. Because I think building on Bitcoin is actually really, really, really cool. Like Steven said, and having a hard challenge makes it worthwhile to solve it.
Great. I'm excited about the on-chain economy. I'm excited about the future technical innovations of Bitcoin and Bitcoin product-focused Bitcoin stuff. Thank you guys both so much for coming on the podcast. I'm excited to talk to you guys more and maybe someday see you in person. So cheers.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.